Welcome to Nintendo Voice Chat for the week of December 8th, 2016. I'm your host, Jose Otero, and this is IGN's Nintendo Show. Joining me this week, Jonathan Dornbush.
Hello.
And Per Schneider.
Hey.
So a lot has happened, and here's the smaller stories we're not going to spend a ton of time on. The first one is there was a video announcing Nintendo's Universal Studios attractions that they're partnering with not just Studios Japan, but Orlando Resort and Hollywood, their Hollywood Resort as well, their Hollywood location. The intent is to create interactive attractions. That's a really cool story. Not one we're going to spend a ton of time on today. Just quick reaction. I think
once we know more, I mean,
more's coming.
I just love, the look of kind of like the Mario kind of blocks and like landscape when they model it like that. Yeah. So, I hope, though, it's not like the kiddie park where you walk around, you just go ding, ding. Like, like Toontown and Disneyland's fun, but I'd love something that was a little bit more exciting.
See, I was hoping what you were going to say is that the reason they did this is because it's soon. They're saying something really soon.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not next week, but definitely within January, we're going to hear something. Yeah. So the next up, Zelda Ocarina of Time has a vinyl that was announced. That's a really cool story. Not going to spend a ton of time. You should check that out, though. We have it on IGN. You can watch episodes of NVC, obviously on youtube.com/Nintendo Voice Chat. Forgot to bring that up at the beginning. And the thing that we are going to dive deep on, let's kick it off with Zelda Breath of the Wild at the Game Awards.
Finally.
Nintendo had two surprises in store at the Game Awards for us. The first was a Life in Ruins trailer, which briefly showed the first signs of friendly life in Hyrule since Nintendo's Big E3 reveal. And then it was followed later in the program by a Let's Play video featuring Bill Trinen, Nate Bildorf, and they were on a quest to locate a specific shrine inside the Zonai ruins, which was like this exotic sort of riverside space. So let's talk about this. What do we think of Nintendo's presence at the Game Awards? How'd they do?
I think the dual look at the game was brilliant because they got you talking before the show even started. They got you invested in Zelda, and then it came up later in the show. And that's just a brilliant marketing and a move in that night because it kept you, if you were excited for Zelda, you're in that show until you see the next part at least. And I thought that was just a smart move itself.
That was cool. But my one note would be that the demo didn't feel that special after you saw the trailer, and I thought the trailer was awesome. For the first time, we saw the way that towns are set up, and our fears that this was indeed a big empty world I think were allayed a bit by it. You saw NPCs walking around, dogs running around. You saw this kind of bizarre looking thing. Jose actually did a really nice rewind theater on that, pointing out everything. And then you saw that spaceship thing in the sky. There's definitely something about these weird robot alien things invading the planet and all that, right? The Guardians. That got me really pumped. Then I felt like the actual Let's Play, I love both of those guys, was a little bit of a step back because it felt like more of what we'd seen so much at E3, which was this proof that you can approach any situation in 100 different ways and have a different outcome. I love that they showed an enemy avoiding a bomb.
Yes.
But in today's day and age, that's not that special anymore.
No.
Sure.
But the trailer, man,
love that trailer.
Just, like the destroyed world that you caught a glimpse of.
Yeah.
We'd only seen kind of the green trees, lush areas with the little bokoblin camps, and then some of the snow-capped mountains and rivers. Suddenly you get this ruined, kind of volcanically destroyed area and all that. Oh, man. I was super pumped after seeing that trailer.
No, I agree with you. I like that the trailer followed sort of they showed you right away how seasons, they hinted seasons change.
I saw that too.
It wasn't the same tree, I don't think, the shot that they showed. To me, it was either they're hinting at seasons or they're hinting at that these are just very different looking locations spread out in this very big world. I like the idea, more ideas that they hinted at, for example, that these villagers and these NPCs, they can wander and they can fight. And I thought that was also really cool to see. Imagine going over, a hillside, and all of a sudden discovering a bokoblin attack on some NPCs, and them sort of standing their ground, and rewards may be associated with playing along and playing into that. And then the thing that was blowing my mind were the three sort of character shots they showed, which was this bird character that you want to think is a hero from the blue scarf, looked just like Falco Lombardi. And then you had Zelda dressed as an adventurer, and you also had another possible Zelda dressed as a princess. And it's just like, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? And obviously you're not seeing a lot. I will agree with you that the Let's Play lost a bit of the momentum. So the trailer itself is 1 minute and 30 seconds long, roughly. I think it's 1 minute 27 by notes. Whereas the Let's Play, believe it or not, was 4 minutes long. Yet it felt like it didn't dive in as deep. But I will say this. it's made for repeat viewing.
Yeah.
I feel like your second time watching it, you start to sort of get more of the gist of, oh, wait, so they're on this really quick quest that's framed as a riddle to find a shrine. And then you see, just a couple of glimpses of Link's equipment and Link, combat. You see the difficulty in Zelda, which I also think, like, he gets hit at one point and it just eviscerates his health. It was like, whoa. And I even like a small detail I noticed where when he walked into that chameleon ambush, the ones that the chameleon-like characters came out and sort of came at him, there was this piano chord that got hit, like a troubling sound. And I was like, whoa, like that's also very, very cool.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of that didn't get absorbed the first time through. And I feel like that is the challenge of presenting this game in a
Yeah.
Let's Play,
Yes, yeah.
especially in one that felt so edited. And I think that's the other part. There wasn't
Yes.
time to meander. There wasn't a lot of time to sort of take it in. It was just direct cuts to the next
No,
step.
Yeah,
there's,
and
there's
they
sorry,
may have started with a longer clip too, and then had
Yeah.
to like pare it down,
Sure.
right?
Yes,
Pare
yeah.
it
Yeah.
down. Okay.
No, there certainly were those moments where you're luxuriating over the environment and seeing this beautiful world. It was very much hit to this beat, action beat, and you could tell it was edited. And I agree, it lost the momentum. That first trailer, I loved it. I've watched it a dozen times, and
Yeah.
it's just a beautiful. And there's so much hidden in it. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
look at that game.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
just
but
the
I-
shots of the female characters, and then
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's definitely a lot of intrigue in like how does this
Yes.
fit into the timeline? What the heck happened in this world, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I was just happy that it wasn't the same kind of grassy area with the Temple of Time again.
Yeah.
Like just I
Yeah,
loved
it was actually a much better version of the Aonuma Miyamoto Let's Play from 2 years ago, where
Yeah.
the concern
Yeah.
was, hey, this looks empty. It's big, that's nice, but what did they really do except show you that
Yeah.
Epona doesn't run into trees? It tried to set up a sense of mystery, but we had nothing to go off. of,
Still no
whereas now
dungeon,
we've
though.
seen it.
So that's what I thought the Let's Play was going to do. I thought they would tease us and they'd get to a dungeon and you'd see a room and you're like, oh, I do get to use the Zelda like tools like the hookshot or something, right?
Do you really want to see a dungeon? Like, really?
Well, I want to know that they're in there.
But do you really want to see a dungeon?
I wanna-
Let's talk about this. Like, I know where you're coming from, and I
want them
respect
to
it.
step into one, and I want to see a room that has like water in it and stuff, and a
And then
hookshot
run- and then
target.
run
Like,
out.
Right,
screaming.
and then that's the end of the Let's Play. Like
That
had
was-
they had
yeah.
they walked through that door at the end or gotten to that point where
Yeah.
they were going, instead of saying, "Oh, we'll leave that for you guys to see,"
Yeah.
had they opened a door and it was a huge room where you see dozens of different moving
Yeah.
parts, and you're like, "I'm gonna go there, there, and there."
Yeah.
Yeah,
that would.
I feel like we'd still be complaining that they didn't
Sure.
show, but in defense, I do like the idea of ending it that way. I will
Yeah.
agree with you both, but I will say that I think the problem they're facing is they're showing so much of this game,
Yeah.
and they don't
Yes.
want to spoil
that-
that much for people.
That's why-
Yeah.
technically the first area of the game is spoiled. Right?
Yeah.
Unless
Right.
major beats change,
Yeah.
you know how it starts,
Yeah.
and you know at least the first half hour to an hour of what that game's going to
Yeah.
throw at
And-
you.
yeah.
And
That's
I'm
a
okay with that.
challenge.
I don't mind. We run the first minutes of games on IGN all the time, right? Like I don't mind that taste because you're not at risk of getting something spoiled later in the game. It's like you just kind of get a feel for what the game looks and flows like, and I like that sort of discovery. I honestly don't want like a major dungeon walkthrough, and I hope that doesn't happen at E3 if the game gets delayed.
No. We
I
don't
hope-
speak pish posh. We don't speak of that here.
I hope that doesn't happen, but like I would love just kind of like the confirmation
Wait,
that
delayed? It doesn't
a
have a
lot,
date.
That's, yeah, semantics.
Sorry.
But like I just as much as I love that the game has shifted and like the NPCs actually being able to partake in combat, that's a huge departure for Zelda, right? Like where
Yes.
everything is so scripted and set up. I love all that stuff, but I do love me some hookshot and beetle and bombs and like
Take
the kind
it
of
easy, all in due time.
some
Take it easy.
metal
I will
boots.
say,
I want to walk on the water.
I didn't mention
on a fly.
at the start of this they played the Wii U version. That's an important thing to point out.
Yeah.
This is the version
Yeah.
we've seen, and sort of the slight frame rate and hiccups that come with
Correct.
that. But overall, they had a good presence. I agree with you, John. I thought it was smart. I thought the Let's Play did lose some of the momentum, but it still sets up the intrigue. And again,
was
a
still
lot of it
welcome,
was
like-
about
Oh, yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
watch it again, and you'll get a little something more each time. until you're watching it in slow-mo like a crazy man. Like sometimes I do in The Office.
Yeah. Although
Like we all do.
Trinin's performance was so very, very poor in that Let's Play.
Oh, okay. Oh, the gauntlet's been thrown down. So if you want to see two old men rumble, stick around. Come back at E3. So in other news, Nintendo decided to unveil, the Zelda 30th anniversary amiibo are released at retail. We actually have them on the table here.
Yay.
We've come a long way since the original Link, Smash Brothers Link. If you want to pick that one up real
P-Stand
quick.
Link, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you compare that to the Ocarina of Time version over there, you really see that we've come a long way in terms of design, in terms of thinking about poses and how they best fit.
Yeah. Remember when this came out, we said they gotta replace this Link.
And they never,
Yeah.
they did in a subtle way. They didn't redo it. Everyone
Yeah.
said, "Oh, just redo it. It'll be fine."
Yeah.
Nintendo was like, "No, we're gonna do it
No.
our own way."
Yeah.
But definitely the Ocarina of Time Link, even though he doesn't have the kind of darker, kind of mossier
that's the
green.
Twilight Princess
Yeah,
Link,
he doesn't
yeah.
have the
Yeah.
mossier green of the Twilight Princess one. I do like this character much better without the P stand.
Yep. Even
Yeah.
the 8-bit Link, I love that the white sword is on
I
his
love
back
it, yeah.
instead of the regular wooden sword,
Yes.
which is
That's right.
the worst
O-
weapon in the game.
Only thing is when you take a sprite like that and you visualize it in 3D, some creepy stuff happens.
very
Like
strange,
his
yeah.
nose is huge and he's got these beady green eyes because these sprites couldn't have a lot of colors, right?
Yeah.
So he does look a little goblinish
Little
when you look at
Pinocchio
him. And
going
he
on there,
really
yeah.
freaks me out.
No,
but then
totally.
I think, the Wind Waker characters, because they're so cartoonish,
them.
always look really good. You know,
yeah.
we obviously have the original Toon Link from Smash Brothers, but
And
these two
compare
are really
Toon
cool
Links
too.
for a second. I
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
really like the Wind Waker version on the Zelda set more than the Toon Link version in the Smash set. I feel like it captures more of that character's essence. I mean, you still see the exuberance in the Smash version. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong.
It's
There's
for sure
energy
the
in the
charm
pose.
of that character.
Exactly.
I can remember making all of those motions as you're moving the C stick around. Like I can remember him doing that.
Yeah,
constantly. It's
just the
fun to see.
flair of like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm the conductor of
Yeah.
this ocean orchestra.
And then I have these too, and like some Wind Waker links have a little bit of a cross-eyed problem, and the new ones don't. I haven't seen a single one yet with that issue. So
C
that's
straight
good.
as far as I can. Yeah.
Yep. So these are out at retail, and Nintendo in a Tumblr post detailed what they do in Breath of the Wild, which we all had the question sort of looming in our minds because the Twilight Princess Link that was released, we found out is a wolf companion in the game, which helps with survival, and it turns out these amiibo also help with survival. So apparently each amiibo will offer random items that you can use in the game, as well as you might receive a legendary treasure chest. And they sort of framed it in the post as like legend has it, which is kind of cute. It just kind of reminds me of that playground. Like, did you know that if you use the whistle at so-and-so, you do
Yep.
this, etc., etc. So 8-bit Link gives you a random number of barrels. Ocarina of Time Link gives you a random amount of meat. Wind Waker's Link gives you a random amount of fish. And Wind Waker Zelda is a random selection of plants.
So you say it as if like it was a normal thing. It literally falls from the sky in
That's
the game.
hilarious. It's
It's
great.
so
Like you
good.
scan it, it's like. Blah, blah, blah.
I didn't indicate it was normal. I was just getting to the part that so they drop from the sky. But the idea still being in line with like what the Twilight Princess Wolf Link does, where it's something to help you in the game. I think this is also kind of the Band-Aid for some folks, because if enemies hit as hard as they do in that zone or in other places we've seen in that game, you're going to need curing items. You're going to
yeah.
need some help. I wonder if this is sort
Amiibo
of
sales skyrocket.
the way to sort of help like players who aren't used to that through this a little
Yeah,
bit.
I died playing in the demo, but I still think you're underselling how creepy it would be if meat fell from the sky in real life. Like,
Okay,
I mean,
so we need to move on.
Weirder things have happened.
no, it's
No,
not
that's too much
it's
for
not
you?
okay.
That crosses the
Fish,
line.
fish, they're perfectly reasonable explanations
Sure.
for fish falling from the sky. Watch Fargo, but meat, no.
Okay. Anyway, I did want to point out though, like we said earlier, we've come a long way since with how Amiibo are working. Whether or not Nintendo will ever revisit the opportunity with a Smash port maybe on Switch to redo and reissue some of these Smash Amiibo, we'll see. But as of right now, they're doing it in other more subtle ways. And you're either really jazzed about this Amiibo functionality or you're not. But the game's going to be cool without it, which is always the sort of the way to take it. All right, so for our next trick, we need to talk about Pokemon Go, which reportedly was going to get new monsters, and then out of nowhere, it's got new partnerships instead. So it's company monsters instead of like pocket monsters. It's
Right.
interesting. So why don't we talk about that a little bit? So it started with a leak from Starbucks,
Yes,
right?
of all places.
And then it led to some confirmation in the form of
Yes.
Niantic saying, "Hey,
Over 7,000 Starbucks are now going to be Pokestops or gyms. There's also, I think, 10,000 Sprint locations also have been transformed to work with the game, which is it's more than 17,000 new Pokestops and gyms. It's going to be much easier to find places that you haven't already visited.
Yep, yep.
Beyond that, they didn't really announce anything else. It seems that, to me, that implies they're gearing up for something big. You don't open that many new spots without wanting people to get back into the wild for some reason.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Between those two things, though,
but
they did
yes.
say that there will be new
new
details
announcement, yes.
revealed. The announcement of the announcement, which is always the thing that we just kind of
Yeah.
go, just say something. But December 12th,
Yes,
they're going to
next
say
week.
more, and the big guess is
Is a new set of Pokemon in the game, either the Gold and Silver Pokemon or Alola form Pokemon, or maybe even Sun and Moon, just the new Pokemon for those games.
Yeah.
Any of those three options seem likely to me. I think probably Alolan form's less likely because to a casual audience, that'll just be confusing.
Yeah.
Why is this Rattata one color and the others
also
different?
if they're in like the Hawaii themed area in
Yes.
Pokemon Sun and Moon is the reason these things exist. But we gotta go to
Yeah.
Hawaii to get these. Like it would be weird. They wouldn't
Yeah.
do that.
No,
they
no,
don't do that.
But I think either is likely. I think the Sun and Moon thing is a brilliant way to capitalize on the popularity of those games right now. They are huge sellers, as Nintendo has already announced, as Pokemon usually is. And so I think that makes sense. I love the Johto Gold and Silver Pokemon, but I
yep.
think Sun and Moon is the smarter strategy.
Yep. No, I completely agree. I will say that I do think that it is Johto and not Sun and Moon Pokemon. I think they wouldn't move the deck that quickly
That's
or
fair.
that far
Yeah.
up. And data miners are also just picking apart this game to find out more.
Yes.
Before we talk about that, Ditto got released as well as
Yes.
an incentive around the holidays for Thanksgiving as part of
Yeah.
that Thanksgiving promotion, which happened.
Just all of a sudden, oh, hey, your Pokemon might turn into Ditto. Have fun. Good
yeah,
luck.
yeah. And data miners picking apart the game found sound files for new Pokemon. I'm not going to go through all of these
Yeah.
potential genders, more customization, possibly more microtransactions, but that should be expected.
And we still don't have the legendaries. So I think if anything's likely, it's the legendary birds from Red and Blue and Mewtwo.
yeah, yeah.
Still not in the game. but yeah.
I think that my last point to make on this is I still think that the legendary birds are part of whatever rating
Sure.
is supposed to be. And
Yeah.
that's the part of the game that the other day I realized, like they promised when they showed it, and then it's gone. Like they haven't said a word about it. And,
Yeah.
the Niantic team has been... at least visibly, I want to believe they've been trying to keep this thing going and definitely try to address and fix things. But just recently, like they fixed the location part of that game and trying to
Just
hunt
recently,
Pokemon.
yeah.
What the heck were you doing in the past 3 months?
Yeah.
If you were trying to play this game, like were you just hoping and praying
Just
to the
good luck.
Poke Gods? Yeah. So it's
We'll find out next week, though.
We will.
What
Yep.
it is. Yeah.
yeah. So then moving on, Box Boy has a new game coming out in Japan. So far announced for Japan only, releasing on February 2nd. And there's an amiibo coming as part of it. So the game is called Goodbye Box Boy.
Sayonara
It will
Box
include
Boy.
the retail version. Sayonara Box Boy. That's right. Will include a soundtrack CD if you buy a physical edition, along with in the bundle a very cute QB amiibo.
Yeah, pre-ordered. I immediately pre-ordered from
Yeah.
Amazon
Smart.
Japan. It's just such a weird amiibo. I mean, it is literally like
It's a cute
gray box on an amiibo stand. I just couldn't resist.
Yeah.
And it sells there for like 3,000 yen. So it's a
$30.
fairly cheap
Yeah, okay.
collection for what I always thought were very, very clever games. I know you love them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I wish we would get that here, but like, I don't know if there's even a market for something like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But with there being an amiibo, I mean, I would assume it would at some point be available in the U.S.
You
Yeah,
think
I mean, so far I don't think there's
but-
been an amiibo outside of the Capcom Monster Hunter set.
Yes, yeah.
For stories.
What if we get him in
Hasn't come
Smash
here.
Brothers?
Well,
Box
too.
Boy should be in the next
I mean,
Smash Brothers
that's not a
edition.
that's
Come
not a
on.
bad guess.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. The risk they run though is another sort of Chibi Robo amiibos
Yeah.
situation
Yeah.
where the game didn't end up being that interesting, and I don't think that many people cared about Chibi Robo. It's a risk on their part, but it's one that I really like only because we've said nothing but good things about Box Boy
Yeah.
on this show. I feel like around the internet and around the world, folks who have played this game have all been pretty much charmed by it.
Yeah.
So this makes sense as sort of a move to take in a time when Nintendo seems very convinced to keep 3DS alive. Like they're not shuttling that thing while they're getting ready for Switch. You know, they
Yeah.
have some more
Yeah.
games announced. So I'm gonna make the safe bet that the game makes it over. The amiibo is the big question, but I do think it will, only because I don't think Nintendo has had an amiibo that hasn't come out here, that they've only put out in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't there one?
I've been thinking about it.
Trying to remember, there was,
the Godzilla
Wasn't there some
Yoshi made
Dragon
it.
Quest thing or something? There was something. I'm forgetting.
Well, again, with a third-party publisher, it's
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
Capcom's
yeah.
case with Monster Hunter Stories, it's
yeah,
happened.
that's
Yeah.
what it was. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. But I can't think of one. If you can think of one, email us nvc@ign.com. Put amiibo Japan only
No, it wasn't. It
in
wasn't
the
Dragon
subject
Quest,
line.
yeah.
All right, so this is the big Mamma Jamma part of our show, and we're going to need a break to collect ourselves before we get into it. Super Mario Run, Nintendo Switch on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. There's a lot to talk about here. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Jose Otero here with Per Schneider and Jonathan Dornbush.
Hello.
And last night on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, we already knew that Reggie Fils-Aimé was scheduled to be a guest,
Yes.
and we all assumed it would be Mario Run related, which it was.
Sure.
But then something else happened, and the Switch had its first public demo presentation of The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild running on it, and also just someone else holding the device and being filmed live, not an edited reveal video like what was shown in October.
Yeah.
This was huge, and we're gonna sort of tear this apart. So do you want to start with Switch and then talk about Run, or do you want to start with Run and then switch over?
Let's talk about Run first because
Yeah.
it's not as exciting as seeing the Switch actually turned on. So let's get that out of the way.
Okay, so
looks
then-
cool.
yeah.
That
Yeah.
was it. So
No. Well, in conjunction with that, Nintendo put out a new trailer that showed off more of the game,
Yeah.
more of its features. We saw Kingdom Builder and the mini games that you're going to have to play to get some of the Toad Rally tickets, the rally tickets you need to play the multiplayer mode. They also showed you that Luigi, Yoshi, and Toad are unlockable playable characters. Toad specifically being, I believe, tied to my Nintendo. I believe that was said, which was cool. And that a demo is currently available at the App Store as of December 8th, which is the day we're recording this.
Yes.
Now we're done. Now we can move on. How was it? It looks cool. The trailer looked
Mario
great.
Run. No,
Yeah.
I mean, looks
I'm
really
excited.
fun.
Yeah, for me, leading up to this point, I was not sure whether or not I should be excited for this in the way I'm excited for major Mario releases, but that trailer made me more excited. Like, oh, there's variety to these levels, and I'm excited to try to conquer each one of them for sure.
Yeah, and it's you
Yeah.
know it's a simple game. This is not Nintendo spending months or a year
No.
in R&D trying to build a game engine, right? It uses
Yeah.
existing game engines
Unity.
and existing Unity and existing assets and everything. But like it still looks really fun.
Oh,
and
yeah,
like
for sure.
you when Fallon played it, he was at first confused why Mario would turn around, you know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but it is so simple. Like after playing it for 1 minute, you get it and
Yeah.
you can play it really well and it makes people feel good who are not good at video games too. You know, like
Yeah.
I think there'll be enough depth for the likes of us to like get every little
Yes.
coin and
The
every
extra
little
coins to-
special.
yeah.
And,
Yeah, it's also a rolling advertisement. I feel like the convenience of like you're holding onto the subway while you're playing with the other hand. The person
Yeah.
over your shoulder is looking, going, "Oh man, that looks cool."
Yeah.
This will be interesting. I know that a lot of Android users are more and more Android users are reaching out to me on Twitter, upset about this. All I can say is they've said it's coming in 2017, and you got to hang in there. I know it sucks, but this is the path they chose.
yeah.
I thought it looked good as well. Moving on, then. Zelda Breath of the Wild first or Nintendo Switch first?
Nintendo
Sorry.
Switch first.
Yeah.
Because
Okay,
we've
let's
already
Switch.
talked Zelda, but
Yeah.
All right, no,
Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
we saw it
Yeah.
running on Switch,
Yeah.
and it's a
Yeah.
shorter conversation. But fine, let's talk about Switch. So, as the one more thing for this presentation, Reggie lifts up the question
complete
blocks.
surprise to Fallon.
Yes.
Yeah,
Come on.
no, it's scripted. It is totally.
It was a
scripted.
giant yellow question block in front of him. I'm sure
Yeah.
he knew what was in it.
Yeah, I think they just didn't let him touch it until it
Yeah.
started. You
Yes,
never know.
No,
No,
but
they-
100% otherwise, it was from the way he was talking. He had points in his head of things to remember and things to talk about. He knew,
Definitely.
but
yeah. But there you had it. It is the Nintendo Switch, which was playing Breath of the Wild, and then Reggie put away the Pro Controller he was using, picked this thing up out of the cradle. Interestingly enough, the TV switched over to just a boilerplate like image of the Nintendo Switch.
It
the
turned it off
logos.
before it switched.
Yeah, before it
Yeah.
switched, which was surprising to me, not to just let that moment sort of happen, but maybe they just didn't want a black monitor. I don't know. But they timed it that way. He picks it up, and it is surprisingly thin. It's surprising how thin it was.
It's
Yeah.
like when you look at you have a 3DS, an XL here, and like the Switch looks thinner than this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like an
Take the
Apple
screen
device
off.
with a
Yeah.
it looks like an Apple device with a case on it. A little bit fatter, obviously, but
Yeah.
but the same kind of feel and styling to it, and it does look slick and not clunky like the gamepad.
Which we have here if you're watching the video version, and there's none of these like handholds on the back. And if you remember like the prototype Wii U, that wasn't there either. That was something that was added after the fact just to kind of help with like grips, like when you're holding it, and it does make it more comfortable. But at the end of the day, it also makes it incredibly bulky.
Yeah.
So it looked nothing like this sort of Fisher Price kind of like young purses. Like, let's be honest, like this feels kid friendly, whereas that looked way more sophisticated. And in front of an audience of late night TV watchers and folks who were in the room, like probably the biggest audience on late night TV.
And not just the people in the room. It's for the YouTube crowd. Like that
absolutely.
clip will be seen on YouTube way more than anyone who sees it on TV. And that's what late night has become about. It is those YouTube clips. And that was why I think this was such a smart, well-edited.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
Yeah,
totally.
and Fallon obviously loves this stuff,
Yes.
right? Like he's not faking his love for these video games, and like you could see Miyamoto was surprised when Fallon knew the whole background story about Legend of Zelda. Like Miyamoto is like, oh, he knows. He's like motioning at Fallon in the audience. No, but what I loved seeing was just what it looks like when somebody's holding it in their hand, and like if you compare, like if you want to get an idea of the size of the screen.
Stop knocking over my.
Yeah, I keep on
going.
hitting tingle. But if you want to get an idea of the size of the screen, right? Like, I mean, it looks slightly bigger than the gamepad screen. Like,
It's hard to tell for me.
The size of
I
the
think
3DS
bigger,
XL, or maybe an iPhone 6 Plus, like the whole shebang, not just the screen.
Yeah.
And so if you have a gamepad and a 3DS XL, put it on top, and what you get is something that's slightly wider than the Switch, and you got to cut off this entire bottom part,
Yep.
and you'll see it's like a much longer, kind of skinnier device, and then it's obviously a lot slimmer too.
So we also finally got a really good look at the back of the tablet device itself, the actual Switch device. We also saw the back of the dock as well, but not a great look because
Yep.
they had something sort of chaining it down, which Nintendo's known to do. They chain things down at my desk all the time. If you're listening, thanks. And on the back of the device itself, we observed these small, tiny circle buttons that are right underneath the ZL and ZR triggers, presumably the
Yep.
ZL and ZR triggers.
Yep.
Nintendo isn't really
We don't know
known
what
for
they're named yet.
changing the names of buttons
Yeah.
often. Maybe they did this time around. But if you have a Wii U gamepad, it's near those triggers, and it's a tiny circle button. And the speculation we immediately had was that in the Switch reveal video that was shown in October, you can definitely tell that they were pressing something behind it. Like there's a way to take those things out and unlock them. They don't just slide off.
Yeah.
The guess is you're pressing that button and you'll be sliding off your Joy-Cons. And
I mean, I
doing
think
whatever.
you need to, because especially for just parents who buy that for their kids, you don't want them to accidentally be dropping the screen
Yeah.
and to be flinging things around. Like that would destroy the system in days.
Yeah. even though Nintendo like has a good reputation for doing a lot of product testing to make sure,
Sure.
like, hey, this can fall from this height, it's
Yeah.
not going to break. It can fall from this angle, it's not going to warp. I agree with you. And so then we also saw the buttons over the left-hand side of the controller. So
The release buttons?
Well, no. So the release buttons we just talked about.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the buttons on the left-hand side of where the Joy-Con left is. We actually got a closer look. So imagine the screen for a second of the Switch itself. Then you have Joy-Con left, Joy-Con right. On the side of Joy-Con left, we saw buttons across the top that we didn't get to see in the Switch reveal video either, which could be power on and off.
Oh, I see.
Could be
Right,
volume,
Yeah.
or could even be a sync button for additional controllers, because you're probably gonna still have to have a physical button for that, even though they're probably gonna do it through menu like they do with Wii U.
Yeah.
You and I were talking about that at lunch today.
Yeah, I mean, my take after hearing everything and seeing everything definitely was like circular power button and then volume rocker. I mean, it looks more like a rocker than the Wii U slider, you know, if you look at this one.
Yeah.
And then there's a standard headphone port next to it, which
Yep.
thank good they don't have the courage to get rid of that
To get a
one.
lightning port.
Yeah.
I wonder where that
Yeah.
came from.
And then what you didn't see, what you see on the gamepad was the stylus, right? So
Yeah,
no stylus
there
on
was
that
there
one.
was a single spot for a stylus, and then the other thing you saw on the Switch device itself was we got a quick look at the bottom when
Ah.
Jimmy was
Yeah.
trying to take the
kickstand.
kickstand out on the I guess it's the right side,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and you saw that it is a tiny USB-C, that's a good thing. If this is all powered through USB-C,
Yeah.
that is an awesome story for several reasons. One, it is a new format. It's not proprietary. It's a cable you can get anywhere,
Yeah.
which means you'll probably be able to use a remote battery on this if you wanted, like a cell phone charger.
A charger.
Yeah.
USB-C can charge very fast.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that is to me the best part of this story because so let's imagine the scenario. Right now, going into the Switch event in January, the big thing we're expecting is battery life ain't great because you know what? Battery life ain't great on a lot of devices.
It will not be
Yeah.
great.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah.
the reality.
Yeah.
But if the story is then, but you're going to charge up in 15 to 30 minutes and you're out the door again playing for the next 3 hours,
Yeah.
that's a good story to tell, I
Yeah.
feel. It's a better story to tell than,
Yeah.
you're still waiting for hours to recharge this thing.
Yes, especially if for people who are going to use it for like long flights, and if there's a way to add additional chargers to it. Like, I want that in my Switch. Like, I will probably be getting a Switch no matter what, but knowing that I'll have that ability will make it a much easier like relief on my mind.
I mean, the 3DS has much longer battery life than the Switch for sure.
Yeah.
And even for that one, I got myself like a knockoff charger cable and plug it
Yeah.
into a little battery
USB
pack to
and, yeah.
to recharge it on the go. And like
Yep.
I'm definitely gonna do that with the Switch as well. So
Yeah.
in the end,
Yeah.
life will find a way, and we will
Yeah.
be able to charge this thing on the go. But I think I'm really curious to see if we will hear more about battery life at the January event.
Oh, we will.
You-
Yeah.
you
we,
think
Oh,
so?
yeah.
I
You
think-
have to tell
I
that
feel
story.
like it's the Achilles heel of the system. You kind of want to keep that
I
down
think you have to tell that
as
story.
long as possible.
The
I think
sooner
you get
you
an
tell it, the
estimated
better.
time. It will be
Yeah.
it will be the nicest range they can give.
Yeah.
They will-
but it
they will
And they'll
say-
get pressed with questions about
Yes.
it.
They will
trust
say
me.
2 to 5 hours.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you run Box Boy, the fourth game on it, it will run for a very
Box-
long time.
box
'cause it's-
squared.
Yeah, that's right. Quadrupled.
That's
It will
three,
not
yeah.
use
It's a
Wi-Fi.
Four-sided dimensional.
It won't even use colors. No, it'll be very simple. Whereas like if you run Zelda, that thing's gonna be gone fast. And if you run Splatoon and play with somebody,
Mm-hmm. That could definitely be it.
Yeah.
Also, just USB-C is another method to we're assuming then that this is also the way that they're outputting the signal from the Switch, which then converts to an HDMI out, which then goes to your television.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is potentially it, and it ties into a story that broke this week that EB Games Australia basically posted 3 unofficial Switch accessories that, guess what, all use USB-C. This is a
What-
good thing, I
What a
feel.
surprise.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then that sets up in my mind, we're going to be, the accessories on this thing, which Kimishima already was hinting at in a couple of interviews of like, oh, there's more to it. There are more accessories and things you're going to use. What contraptions will you be sliding on and off this thing? That is the biggest question right now.
You don't make removable controllers on the side and then don't have a plan for some other stuff you can do with those. And like,
Yeah.
Nintendo's always been really inventive and playful. I mean, going back to the Rumble Pack and all these things, you may call them gimmicks, but they always had a kind of a cool idea and a cool plan for it. I'm all for it. I'm not dying to add more plastic to my drawers in my house, but like, just like special edition controllers
top
for
of this,
special
all this
games.
plastic right here?
And then but then also remember that these aren't you don't just throw away the original set if you get some more. You can have then 4-player games
Yeah.
on the go, right?
You completely walked over my joke about Amiibo.
What? I didn't hear it.
All that
I was
plastic,
so enamored with my
all that
voice.
plastic right there. Like plastic isn't a part of any Nintendo
That's-
purchaser's
That's
life.
on my shelf though. That's different.
But
You
no,
can put
you're-
your Joy Cons on your shelf.
Yeah.
That's a smart idea about, like you were saying, with collector's editions, with different
Yeah.
Joy-Con controllers. Like, I would love half of the special edition 3DSs, but I only need one 3DS for
Yeah.
myself. So, but having Joy-Cons that I could switch in and out, here's my Zelda Joy-Cons, here's my Nintendo, to buy as a commemorative thing, like it's
I
an
mean,
option.
I hope so. I just my thing about it is I want if you're gonna do these Joy-Con experiments,
Yeah.
I hope that it is not tied to just one game.
No, I think it'll be
is
more
one
than
thing.
just a faceplate sort of thing. I think they will do
But
more.
even faceplates didn't really work out in new 3DS's favor. Like the
Nah.
XL
Oh, no.
became the bigger seller, even though on paper and even to me, I like the idea of being able to swap that stuff out because
Yeah.
customization is cool. I think that maybe one part of where Joy-Cons will go is customization. I agree. And when the Switch got revealed, it was really fun to watch the community create all these different color variants. There was a Super Nintendo version. There was
Some
an N64
beautiful,
version. There was
versions.
a
Yeah.
GameCube version in purple. That was really fun to see. But I worry that you really better tell me a good story of why I need this because I'm not convinced if the thing in the box already has all that stuff. Like
Yeah.
this isn't Wii Motion Plus we're talking about here. If it is something to that extent and you find games that can tap into it, fine. But if it's just an aesthetic choice, I then am reluctant to, and this is coming from someone who buys a lot of useless things in his life. I probably would buy
Don't we
it,
all?
but
Yeah.
I'm not jazzed about it.
I'm fine. I mean, like the one thing I thought the system looked cool, the plastic looked cool, screen a little worried about that. But one thing I'm not a huge fan of is that the Audi R8 dual color setup of that
Yeah.
thing. You know, like I do like that kind of dark gray. And the way that they use kind of they don't really have highlights on the D-pad. I actually dig that. But when you take it to the sad dog, the sad puppy controller, I think the stripey looks really odd. And so I'm hoping they will actually release a different color gray of the Joy-Cons too, because then
yeah.
I can have a uniform colored.
That's
system
one way
and
to
all
take
that,
it.
you know?
I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely, and I think you just said this. I'm not sure because I kind of tuned out for a
Yeah.
second, and I apologize. But
Wah, 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 wah.
you know I love
Charlie
you,
Brown.
You know I love you. But when the two-tone look clearly just tells the story that these are removable.
Yeah.
And that's the thing
Yes,
you and I
for
have
sure.
been talking about a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
But then there's also the thing of if it was one uniform color, it looks a little bit too much
Yeah.
like this product
I-
on the table.
I
that
hear you.
Ended up not really selling well and moving the needle for them.
And it's more about the sad puppy for me than the system. The system actually looks kind of
but
cool.
The
with
sad puppy
two
looks
colors.
like this sad puppy
Yeah,
that
but
I'm,
like
I'm
with this-
surprised. So I'm holding up a GameCube Wavebird
Wavebird.
controller.
love
But
that
granted, the sad puppy looks like it goes way lower than
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
one. But
The ears are much droopier.
yeah,
yeah.
for sure. But
Either way, it's not
it's,
a.
it's as hideous as this thing because this thing is ugly. Let's
How
be honest.
dare you.
I'm
Well,
gonna say it
I
right here.
love
well,
that.
this
I
looked
love
like
this
a
controller.
when this came out, it looked like the underside of a face hugger from Aliens. But yeah, the sad puppy, whatever those things were. But
I'm gonna hold on to this for the rest of the show.
the sad puppy
mine now.
looks very functional. And I think it's going to be very, very comfortable too because it has those long prongs. And it's just a visual style issue where I think the Pro controller just looks a lot.
No, and
better.
I think the handles are a good fit because that's my favorite thing about the PlayStation
Mm-hmm.
4 controller versus the Xbox One controller. Like I find it more
Yeah.
comfortable because there's more room for my hands.
Yeah.
Versus when I'm holding an Xbox One controller, it just my problem with that one is that it becomes narrower as it reaches upwards
top.
towards the shoulder buttons, and so then I just feel like I'm tapping my two
Okay.
index fingers together because these hands are huge. I'm not sure if you heard.
And-
So what'd you
No,
see?
and then when you talked about the plug at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
The USB 3 next to
C.
it, you can see. You can see the. I was thinking of HDMI.
I was thinking of Spanish.
You can see the little pegs, the holes for the pegs in the cradle, right? Like
yeah.
they're short kind of pegs that make sure that the system is guided into it.
Yeah, and on the
like,
back,
sits
you also
very good.
saw sort of
Yeah.
these little indents that would suggest that that's part of just situating it into the cradle and it basically not being able to slide out easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does
Smart.
look like you have to exert just a little bit of energy to pull it out. You're not like pulling up a weight or anything like that. I'm just
It's not
saying.
exercise, but
Yeah, no.
And then when you look
We
at the
lift.
video, you
Yeah.
get a really good look at the cooling grid at the top too, right? The system can run hot, and so it's got cooling at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the cradle does not have technology in it. There's nothing that boosts the display. But when you're running off AC, when you're running off power with this thing, it's gonna be able to perform better. Right,
Yeah.
just like a laptop would. When you take it off the AC, your games get downgraded. In certain cases.
Yeah. No, I'm just looking around this thing because the wide button that I thought was power, more and more the arguments getting made that is in fact volume, and I hear it. The volume buttons Nintendo has made have always been split. I mean, I think on
Yep.
your 3DS it's also a slider. I haven't seen them do a
On the
unified
side.
button in a while, but the power button is in fact like circular, and that does
Mm-hmm.
make a lot of sense. Even though I do think you have to put a sync button somewhere, but then again, looking at this gamepad, I mean, there is a sync button here to sync it to a Wii U console,
Yeah.
but that's not the same thing as syncing a controller through it. So maybe it is all in fact menu driven and not
be.
done through hardware. I think that most hardware I've
Yeah.
seen does it in two places.
There's no syncing with the dock.
Yeah.
With this device, there's like
Yeah.
it's not like the gamepad where
Yeah.
I'm glad they actually said it on Fallon and they said this is the console.
Yeah.
I think the majority of people in the audience probably didn't realize that yet.
No,
It's like
yeah.
they need to keep telling that story. No, the pretty visuals you see, this
This
is
is it.
doing it. Right?
There was a clap right after that moment. It could easily be scripted, but some of it felt genuine because people were like,
Yeah.
I get it now. And
They need to retell that
yes,
story
that has
over and
to
over.
be-
Yeah.
And you could hear it in Reggie's delivery of that line. He's like, "This is the Nintendo." So it's very much
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you need to understand this.
Everything
Yeah.
is coming out of it. Yeah, no, and
Yeah.
that's an important story to tell. So important, in fact, that they're still not telling you the touchscreen story. They're still not
Yeah.
telling you
Oh, yeah,
some
they
of the
didn't
other
talk about that.
accessory stories.
Yeah.
Like, they're very much keeping the message on, look what it can do. It's on your TV, and now it's not. And
Yeah.
now you can just play it. And when we saw what was playing on it to transition gracefully to Zelda Breath of the Wild running on Switch, looked like it ran at a better frame rate. It's hard to tell because
So on the
first of all,
big
it's off
screen?
of camera. Yeah.
Yeah, they turned it very slowly, right? Like, by the way, it's an old developer trick. Not saying that they did that on purpose, but like in demos, sometimes developers turn really slowly to show you the beautiful
Yeah.
world, but to also make sure that the game doesn't
Well,
chug,
and not,
right?
not screen tear
Yeah,
or something like that.
exactly.
Like you're kind of hoping that things don't fall apart.
And they did that at the beginning, and you saw, as someone who's played the game at E3. Granted, it's been in development for a while. It looked better, and not like outrageously better with better special effects. It just ran smoothly. There was a pretty big freaking explosion in there.
yeah, with
Yes.
the boulder when
Yeah.
Reggie rolled it down the hill.
And
Yeah.
that ran beautifully without a hitch. The game looked good on the big screen. It's
Yeah.
hard to tell on the tiny screen. Now they were playing it under very bright lights. If you've ever been in a studio, those lights are way brighter than you think
Yeah.
they'd
Yeah.
be.
Oh, yeah.
And like it's very hard to see anything. So don't look at the screen in the video and think, oh, it's gonna be washed out and blue tingy and all that. That's the lighting from the studios. What you
Yeah.
did see though was a slight kind of like a little bit of a mottled effect when the light fell onto it. So, it's probably not it's definitely not as slick as a Vita LED from the first Steam series. Or
it's not a
yeah.
Retina. Let's just
Yeah.
get this out of the way
Yeah.
right here. If you're walking in saying you're going to get a Retina quality screen or the kind of screen you'd get on a Google Pixel, for example, or a Google tablet, I don't think you're getting that
No,
here. I
no.
think you're getting a 720 to 1080p portable screen experience. More likely 720p. We'll find out what the
For
truth
sure.
is
Yeah.
when they talk about it more.
Which is, and then the 720p, of course, is a smart choice if you want to maximize battery
Battery,
power
for sure.
and all that and cost, right? Because at a smaller screen size like that, if 720p sounds scary and low to you, I mean, don't. It will look really, really good in 720p at that kind of screen size. But there's no doubt also it'll run in 1080p on the big screen.
So we've said on this show before too that because it then is being played on a smaller screen, it's going to look better because
Yeah.
it doesn't have to have the job of looking great on a larger TV, which has more pixels and has more room. And so that's fine, and it looked like it ran fine when Jimmy ran up to something and finally did cut an enemy after he spent like 2 to 3 minutes freaking out over all of this. And honestly, who wouldn't? Even if it wasn't genuine, or if it wasn't scripted to some extent, it was still like, holy cow, I can't believe I'm doing this. It looked like it ran at a fast clip, and that's an important thing to point out, only because we have all been kind of looking at this as like, and you've said this on this program, Pear, just the idea that this is going to run like a gaming laptop and it may have to clock down. In fact,
Yep.
it will likely clock down in order to run the game. It was nice to see that if that is true, game's not running that different from what you saw
Yeah.
on a television.
Not an appreciable difference. And I think especially for a wider audience who doesn't think of things as 720, 1080p, they don't really know it beyond what they're told when they go to Best Buy. I think it still will look good enough that they'll be okay with
I think like you're not, I think you're not going to see a humongous step up from the Wii U in the quality of games, right, kind of technically or right off the bat. But what the Wii U never got was the benefit of, the PlayStation or the Xbox hardware, where developers just got better and better
Yeah.
because they made more games.
Well-
And this system is way easier to develop for, according to developers who are working on it, than the Wii U. And so I think right off the bat, you're going to get better quality visuals, even on hardware that is not like a huge step
So,
forward. over the
but I
current
would
one.
challenge that a little because Wii U, the story for the visuals did get better. I mean, I feel like if you look at Pikmin 3 when it launched, and you look at like Mario Kart 8 when that came out,
For sure, Nintendo's
Still
like, they were
Nintendo,
saying
yeah,
way
that's
better
still
at that.
Nintendo
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
But like the visually most impressive games are, not always from the first parties,
Oh, of
right? On the
course,
other
yeah.
platforms. And I was saying like developers got a lot of practice on those, whereas like it feels like, Wii U developers gave games one shot and like nothing.
Oh, and they
evolved,
left.
Yeah.
right?
No,
Yeah.
okay, that's a completely
Yubi
valid
didn't
point to
suddenly
that.
make an amazingly beautiful Assassin's Creed game, but I guarantee you, if they had kept on developing those games for the system and had their core team on it, they would have, right? Games would have looked
totally,
better.
totally. And then that still remains that will they stick around? And that's the thing that so far, at least going into the announcements, going into every time Nintendo is opening their mouth to talk about the system, everyone seems to lean forward. Not just here at IGN, but even this audience at Fallon. And let's check the YouTube views on that video later. I guarantee it'll be through the roof, as Jonathan said. Yeah. That's going to be an interesting story to see then when this thing finally comes out in March.
Here's what's funny. I mean, I think a lot of our users notice this too. Like, people are not diehard Nintendo fans who clicked on the video to see what does this thing look like. Mm-hmm. I saw a bunch of people saying it looks like a Vita, and PlayStation Vita, which was an awesome machine when it came out. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It didn't die because it wasn't an awesome device. It went up against the king of game machines, the DS, 3DS line from Nintendo. That's not happening with the Switch, right? It's interesting. Like, Nintendo, if they put their full force behind it, now have a truly unique platform in the market.
Well, in that
without a true competitor.
Yeah.
Well,
right?
In that situation, too, though, I feel like
iPhone.
The story that maybe we're not saying is Sony had to make a choice. Either try to continue to throw resources at Vita in order to try and see if the story would change and that it would start selling, or shift all resources to PlayStation 4 and make the best things we can.
Battle of two fronts, right?
Yeah,
that they had to fight.
That's a hard thing to do, especially when, big budget console games require a lot of resources. I feel like sometimes when I'm looking through comments from folks who are big fans of games, that's something that gets really forgotten. Just how much time, how much effort, how many assets, and just how much stuff is on that disc you bought. Mm-hmm. And that to me is just that's important to point out, I feel.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it's going to be genuinely interesting to see if this device can prove the old kind of point wrong, that there wasn't a place for the Vita. And certainly, I mean, there's a core audience of RPG fans. It's got a pretty vibrant community in Japan. Sony just announced a bunch of new games, basically saying it's not dead yet. We're still thinking about it. But
they're not making those games.
Yeah.
This Vita is going to launch with some Mario and Zelda, right? Hopefully. Yeah. So that's going to be pretty interesting.
And not just that. I think going into this, right, the concern has been, is there an audience that wants this device? Does this fill a gap and a need for folks? I think that's been a lot of the conversation, and we still aren't 100% sure, but the story is compelling so far.
There is an audience for playing games like Mario Kart, certainly, right, at home and on the go.
I mean, a bigger audience.
There's no question about it, right? Like, people who do invest in those games all love them.
Sure, but I'm talking about a bigger audience.
And so
I'm talking
now
about like the mass market appeal that like a Wii had or a DS had before the smartphone market boom happened and everything basically got taken away from handheld gaming.
That is the big question, like whether the mass audience will go, this thing is really cool. I mean, seeing it on the show, and I got really excited. I just wanted to play it.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, especially we also don't know what else the system is going to do, because they do have to make that argument of, will I be able to use this for other apps, other streaming services, other things like that? Mm-hmm. That will be an incentive to play to that audience, like you're saying.
Yep.
And we haven't heard a word about that, really.
No, we haven't. And that's been part of it.
And Nintendo was actually really good with certain app makers with their devices, right? Like, if you think back, and Netflix recently announced the kind of download program where you can download movies to your device and then watch them when you're not connected to Wi-Fi. Like, I'm hoping they're having those discussions. Like, this could become an awesome travel device for your backpack. Yeah.
But what comes with that is, what's the storage limitation? And that's still the story. We have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
And that's worrisome, because even like scrubbing through that Fallon footage, like forwards and backwards, didn't see a port that could be SD card. This is where it goes. This is where we're going to put it. And I think the world will absolutely implode if it's another, you have to screw off the back panel in order to put in a micro SD card. Like, we don't want to do that again. That was not a comfortable experience for anyone involved.
Yeah. No, I'll agree with you. I will say the way Netflix and even like Amazon Prime do their download, they offset that data, so you're not downloading so much that your phone is full after one episode. But it is a concern for everything else, for the system, for sure.
No, totally.
I was, by the way, after we saw the first demo, which had a Skyrim type game in it, I was like, wow, they're showing something that is a fairly large scale game.
Yeah.
But it's the original Skyrim was 6 gigs only, right? Like compared to a lot of modern games that clock in at like 40, 50 gigs, right? That's actually a very small game, so probably a good, by today's standards, good choice.
When some developers are really smart on how they use compression too, which has always been the story across CD media and DVD media, right? Just saying.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I mean, it just shows you what you can do with that kind of space. But like, I hope it has enough applicable space that we're kind of leaving the days of physical media behind a little bit more and get to download more stuff.
See, I don't know. I'm actually kind of welcoming the cartridge day, and I'm going to tell you why. And some folks are probably like ready to drop their latte. Like, what are you talking about? As a PS4 owner, I'm tired of having to choose a game to kill off my system in order to put another one on if I stay on the default package, right? If I have a 500 gigabyte PS4, launch PS4, I'm thinking of upgrading to a terabyte PlayStation 4 Pro because the system's just starting to show some signs of age and it's starting to be slow and it's very loud. It sounds like a jet's about to take off my desk when I bring it to the office. So I'm in the position where, now granted, as a consumer though, Sony did the smart thing by giving me the outlet to, okay, if you unscrew this panel, you can buy your own HD hard drive as long as you're comfortable making and buying and finding the right choice and good looking at recommendations and you're willing to do that, you can upgrade it to 2 terabytes. How many terabytes is yours? Out of curiosity, what did you upgrade to? You did 4. That's awesome.
Yeah. They quietly added support. For bigger ones.
The thing with going digital though is that unless you have a solution in place like that, you are picking a game to get rid of every time you buy a new one, and you know what? That sucks. I like to go back to some of that stuff, and that's not a problem I had to really deal with on Wii U because I got a side hard drive, which looks hideous, but it was still a good thing.
I have a side hard drive for the Wii U too. It's in a cabinet, so it doesn't bug me, and it's turnkey. I never thought about it again. But I don't think that's a good option for the Switch, right? Like the whole concept is you take the thing with you and you don't want to go like, oh, I got to move this game. Like, I don't think that's going to be the reality. I think they just need to figure out how to get the storage space in the device up and make sure that we get a decent price on it, right?
So I'm glad you said price. We got to see it yesterday. Obviously, we still don't know what's in the package, but the device itself, now that we've seen another version of it in the wild, in the hands of a late night TV host,
30 Rock.
Yeah. What is this going to cost?
$299.
You go on $299.
It's just Nintendo is just such a mass market company. I just can't imagine that they'd come out with this at a higher price now.
So that's the ceiling.
I was thinking $349 possibly. I think they could do $299 without a pack-in and make their money elsewhere. Or it won't have the Pro controller in it, for example. Obviously, it's not going to have the Pro controller in it, but make some more money off additional plastic with bundles. Retailers are going to bundle that stuff.
Presumably, you have a dock, a grip, right? I think they've said as much. You're getting the dock for sure. The grip is a question. I would imagine it comes with it.
I think they have to have the grip because that fulfills the promise that it is also a home console.
Yes.
And you either have a Pro controller or the grip, and the grip is way cheaper for them to include. Right?
Yep, totally.
I think it has to be $299, or would I love it if it was $249? Sure, but I think realistically $299. I mean, this Christmas you can buy a PS4 with Uncharted 4 for $250.
Okay,
that's
crazy. Huh?
That is amazing, especially at this point in the life cycle. But going up against that, granted, it'll be after the holiday season, but those consoles will be $300 with bundles.
Yeah.
To be any more than $300, to compete at least against the other consoles, I think you're looking at an issue if you're any higher.
Yeah,
I want to disagree just for the sake, but I
think it'll be
in my
cheaper
heart,
or higher.
I think it'll be cheaper.
Wow.
I want to make that case, but at the same time, I think that I think that $299 is the sweet spot, right? I mean, I feel like the people who want this thing are somewhere between the $299 and $350, possibly being the highest. I just need them to tell more of the story.
Yeah.
We don't forget that the Wii U cost actually $349 in the deluxe edition. Like, you got the no space edition for $299.
Yeah,
I remember.
Nintendo is
but
not
we don't know
that.
if they're doing separate SKUs too. I think it's one SKU just to get people moving down the cashier's line. Like, you don't have to make a big choice.
I mean, there is a world where a $249 option would be possible. Probably would have a 16 gigabyte hard drive or something awful that I want to think about.
It won't have a hard drive.
It's true. Excuse me. Storage. Excuse me.
It can have a mouse on a wheel, and it'll get your data that way.
Yeah. Excuse me, but. Yeah, I think there is that possibility, but $299, I think, like you were saying, sweet spot for sure.
I mean, I can't argue against $299. I will say that, but I still want to leave room for. I almost want to go higher now because I just want to leave room for. There is a lot more tech involved here somewhere that's not getting talked about, like that touchscreen.
Well, the touchscreen for sure, and
Multi-touch.
the gamepad had did not have a capacitive touchscreen. It had a very simple touchscreen. You know, you can see it when you look at when you look closely to any of your Nintendo touchscreen devices. You can see it's going to have NFC though.
It'll be through the screen.
Right?
I'm willing to
Yeah.
bet.
It'll be
You're not
NFC,
going to have a touch
but
point like you did in the past.
no camera, right? So they're saving dollars on that. It's not going to have a camera in the Switch. Is it going to have an IR port? I don't know. You know, like
It didn't look like it.
Maybe they kind of cut some of the features out of this device to get it to a decent
It's
price.
not going to have a TV button, I'll tell you that. You're not changing channels with it
Yeah,
anymore.
not going to have a TV button.
You know, I'm going to miss that. This was my favorite remote control that I couldn't lose.
Yeah.
Whereas I've lost plenty of remote controls on
Really?
the couch. Yeah, all the time.
you can use
Not my favorite. It's the one by default
Yeah.
that I can find. Let me
true.
retract
But-
that statement.
So you're saying I'm saying $299. You're saying
I'm
what?
saying there's still room for it to be either
Okay,
$350
that's not a
or
guess,
$250.
though. That's-
No, but I do think that we're setting the bar kind of low for something that we still don't know the full story on. So I'm gonna go in at
Well, you can
$350.
change your mind later.
Yeah, just like
Okay.
we can end up going down, but I'm gonna be the guy who says 350 only because I feel like there is more to the story that we don't know.
Gotcha.
And thereby putting the 299 expectation, I don't think is set in stone. I think it's close to it. I'm really close to agreeing with you guys, but I'm gonna be the guy who disagrees just for the sake and says
329.
350. We move in 50s
Yeah.
here on this program. So 349.99, and we'll see. Right?
$299. Yeah.
I agree with you. Let's not pretend I don't agree with
Yeah.
you.
All right.
All right.
Well, I think we're gonna see what else is in there, right?
Yeah.
Like there's certainly still questions about the Joy-Cons, right? Like how many buttons do they have, all that kind of stuff. There are questions around, I mean, we do know a little bit more about the dock now, confirmed on the back. You can kind of see the indentation where the HDMI and the AC cord come out, right? And
I couldn't really see that through
it's
the
got
panel.
two USB
No, I
ports in the
remember
back.
seeing that from the Switch video, not from the
I
the
see.
Fallon's.
Well, no, you could see it when
segment.
they were showing it when he was playing. You could see it from the back with the
a
cords,
couple,
and
yeah.
it is still, by the way, a chance that you can put this thing flat because the way the cords come out, it wouldn't lie on them. There's a gap to the side for ventilation and for the cords where you could put it flat like a traditional console and slide it in and out.
I guess the last thing we should
They
say
show
is
in
that
Zelda. They only they showed
it was
nothing
the starting
special,
area.
right?
I saw that area at E3.
Yeah.
I feel. Although the gear he was wearing was a little different. So
That's
maybe,
right.
Yeah.
He had
Yes.
a cool outfit, right? Like
Yeah.
the kind of
He
reddish
first
and
appeared
green.
on screen
and-
differently than I think
Yeah,
most people
yeah,
would
no, I
expect.
will agree with
Yeah.
that. No, this was a smart play using Mario. I think the timing and how this all lined up, I want to believe it was intended, but knowing Nintendo and knowing how sometimes things slip or don't make it, regardless, everything lined up in a really good way with this specific demonstration. Having Mario run as you're in, and then pulling back the curtain, showing people the Switch in the wild, having someone else hold it in a not edited, super edited video, really told that story very well.
Yeah, and you can't predict, right? Like for Nintendo, I think this is the perfect show to be on is Fallon. The other big show you want to be on is Oprah. Right, like those are two very powerful TV personalities with the biggest late night show, obviously.
And you get a
Oprah.
Switch.
With the
And
big.
you get a Switch.
No, I mean that is what
Yeah.
Nintendo wanted to do with a Wii over and over. They wanted to be on that show, but you're not guaranteed that you can be on those shows. And so yes, you could go on Conan, but what happened to Square could happen to you, right? Where he makes fun of your game, which is not a good thing, right?
Yeah.
And
It ended up being a good game.
I'm sure they pitched him, and if it hadn't happened, maybe they wouldn't have shown anything now. Like that was the right venue. They nailed it. It was a great presentation. Having Miyamoto play guitar was really
With the
cool.
roots,
Yeah,
all the jam session.
Oh yeah, I lost all my energy arguing with you and talking about this. I
Yeah.
completely forgot. Miyamoto played on stage with the
Yeah.
Roots.
Yeah.
The fucking Roots. What time is it? I gotta wipe that. Like I just couldn't believe that. An hour and 2 minutes. I couldn't believe it. Like that was so cool. I gotta write this down. I'm sorry.
No, I mean that was a great. I don't even know where to go with that.
That's so funny. Like he's so self-conscious.
Yeah.
If you had let that slide, nobody would have cared.
No.
But no, that was awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That was a really cool moment.
Yes.
And like I think, Fallon was hamming it up. He obviously knew Miyamoto was in the audience and didn't just go like, oh, like he was there. Bill was there. But he, like, I think his excitement was genuine, and it was just fun to watch. You know, it was fun to watch him freak out over this thing and how much he loves how much he loves video games and all that.
I wish they would have let Tariq rap over
my
the music. Tariq from the Roots,
That'd
just
be
let him go
amazing. Yeah.
freestyle on it while Miyamoto's playing on guitar.
That would have been cool. Yeah.
It would have been maybe a little too much, but I would have loved that.
I'd buy
someone
that
who,
track immediately.
yeah, as someone who loves the Roots, as someone who knows that is one of the most gifted MCs in all of rap, like I have to say, and hip hop, I have to say, like I was so happy.
good.
Then after the event, Trinan tweeted at us, I think, just saying like, I basically tweeted out this was the coolest thing. Like Switch was dope and everything, but love the fact that Miyamoto was on stage with the Roots playing Super Mario Bros. Theme. And I think as a reply later, Trinan says something like Questlove Gomez knows a lot more about games than you think he does.
Yeah.
Which
Oh,
is
I'm
really
not
cool to
surprised.
hear. Yeah, that's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
No.
No, please, you. Go
Well,
ahead.
Questlove, I went to NYU. Questlove taught there a lot, and so you would see those different sides of him. I didn't take a class with him, but I knew people who did, and he did have those. He does have a nerdier side to him, and that's not just music nerd. He
Nice.
he has that,
Yeah.
and it was cool to see that on stage as well.
Nice.
I do think it was smart. We're talking about the timing of it, whether or not it was always planned or not.
Yep.
They said they weren't really going to talk about new information about the Switch until January, and they've held to that.
Yeah,
but they
they
still
didn't.
kept it in our minds, and that was my worry, was that we were going to go from that announcement video to January without a word. And
That's
I
a
thought
really
this
good
was
point.
This
Yeah.
was a great way of keeping it in the lexicon without having to say anything new.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you
no.
still got to show a major thing because this was the first time, like you said, we're seeing it live.
Yeah, no, totally. I completely agree. I think that's actually really true. Like, just we didn't get something new. We got this thing they kept saying, but at the same time, we were like, holy cow, this was really good.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a simulated screen. Like,
No.
we saw Zelda running on Switch, but you
Yes.
know what? That's a simulated screen, so we're not taking that seriously versus, hey, here's a live demo.
Well, and it was the smartest place to go, as Per was saying. Oprah, Ellen, the daytime shows, the bigger ones are options too, but this is a one that gets you to the younger, the teen, the early 20s crowd in a way that many of the other late night shows wouldn't really get you in the same way. And I think this was really smart. Unless you could somehow get it in a carpool karaoke with James Corden, this wouldn't have hit as big. So I think,
Did it change your mind, or were you already day one pre-order?
We're the day one pre-order crowd.
Yeah.
There's no
we
way.
are, but I don't know. Are
No,
you?
he's in here.
Oh,
Yeah.
I 100% am. It didn't make me, change to go over the fence of not or am, but I very much was like, okay, it's nice to see it live in the wild and not just this prepackaged cool trailer.
Yep.
And I cannot wait for that January reveal. Like, I'm very excited to see what we hear more.
I think it looks very nice. I think
Yes, yeah.
just it looks aesthetically pleasing and not clunky and not like a toy.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm very excited about just kind of holding it.
Yeah, I won't feel
Yeah.
weird taking that on the bus or a subway or a plane and having
Yeah.
it look goofy.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah.
I need to see a case for it next because that's the instant thing I'm going to need when I'm getting
We
off at my
need-
stop.
Yes.
Put it away, keep it moving.
We need
I
a
almost
case.
picture a sort of. Do you remember how laptops have like those foam cases that you just
Yeah.
zip all around them,
Yeah.
like something like that? You just slide it in, keep it moving, get out the door.
Yeah.
Or if it fits comfortably in like the laptop section of your backpack, if you don't want to get a case.
Yeah, it's fairly flat. I mean, it doesn't have like presumably the analog sticks aren't as.
They look
Don't
they
come
look like
as
they
far
come out
out. You think
pretty
so?
far. It looked that way. It was hard to tell.
Yeah.
It'll be fun to find out.
We'll see. I think it'll be a little bit more portable friendly than the Wii U, which is a good or a bad thing depending on what you want, articulation or
Yeah.
travel
Yeah.
size.
Or
but,
just to get out of the living room would
yeah.
be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. And this is that.
Very cool.
All right, we've
Yep.
done it. We've said everything we can about this. This was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for joining us this week. Just a couple house cleaning tips. First of all, thank you for listening to Nintendo Voice Chat. We're a weekly show on IGN. Leave us feedback. Head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. We have one to read. I'll just read it really quick because I felt bad we didn't do it at the start of the program. This was from Next Legend, and he wrote, I have been listening to this podcast for 5 years now. I have to say this is the best podcast around. He gave us nothing but praise. He called us the holy trinity of podcasters.
Aww.
I also want to just make a quick announcement that next week will be the last Nintendo Voice Chat of
Ever.
the year.
Oh.
Oh.
Ever too. You know what? Ever would be nice
Surprise,
actually.
Jose.
Can I get rid of? Can I stop?
No, you
no.
can't.
See. Yeah. Next week will be the last show for the year. We're in the week early because the week after that I'm out of town and
Yep.
we're all starting to get out of town because it's the holidays.
Yep.
Is
at
the
least here in
next
America.
episode the Games of the Year one or? A regular one.
I guess we should do a Games of the Year one. Let's just hope Nintendo has nothing new to say to eat up space. No, actually,
'Cause
we have a special episode we recorded.
just
That's
gonna say.
right. We just recorded that yesterday.
Like, we just recorded. Who are you?
Yeah,
There's
no, sorry.
Two Jose's.
Yeah, there's two Jose's. That was my doppelganger. That's why he did so well. No, yeah, we have a sort of a Game of the Year episode for at least Nintendo platforms. We focused specifically on 3DS and Wii U. We didn't really touch the mobile stuff. A, because Mario runs that out,
Yeah.
and B, because we just weren't asked
When's
to
it go
kind
up?
of do it. That I have to figure out.
Okay.
But that'll be going up as well. That's a special episode,
You'll
though.
get
That's
that
not a
one, too.
regular, but we'll make sure to get that into your hands as well. But
Awesome.
next week we're recording one anyway. That'll be sort of our final for the year, and then we'll see you in January.
Good stuff. Yeah.
And as we get closer to the Switch event, oh my
Yeah.
God! All right.
got-
You can find us on Twitter. You can find Jonathan Dornbush at.
JM Dornbush.
You can find Per Schneider at.
Pair IGN.
And make sure you tell him that sideways Nintendo Switch nonsense is crazy. And you can find myself
talking, yo.
Jose _Otero. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.